Welcome to a very special episode of the Design Build Delivers podcast brought to you by US CAD. I am your host, Erin Looney from the DBIA National Headquarters in DC, and we're closing out 2024 in style by celebrating you, our growing, dedicated audience, hi Mom, and the incredible conversations we've had this year. You've been listening, you've been downloading, you've been telling your friends all about us, and we couldn't be more excited to bring you a little treat. The top 5 episodes of 2024. That's right, we are going to do a top 40 style countdown complete with sound effects and total cheesiness. These episodes were the biggest hits of the year by downloads, and while, all our conversations brought something valuable to the table, these 5 really stood out. But here's the twist. We're not just going to rehash the episodes you already know and love. Instead, we're going back into the 2024 vault to bring you fresh bonus content from these all-stars of 2024. Think of this as the director's cut. Extra insights, untold stories, maybe even a few surprises. And if you hear a snippet today that grabs your attention, don't forget that all our featured episodes, along with the entire catalog of Design Build Delivers podcast episodes, are available on your favorite podcast platform, so you can revisit, catch up on anything you missed, or share with a colleague. And don't worry, none of my terrible dad jokes about robots, sports, or anything else that made you groan actually made the cut. I can't promise there won't be 1 or 2 new ones. And of course, just to make sure you get a fresh dose of embarrassing humor, why did the podcast host bring a ladder to reach new heights in 2025? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. Please don't stop listening. We'll wrap up this episode then with a quick, legitimate look ahead where I'll share some exciting updates for the show. But for now, let's focus on celebrating what made 2024 so memorable. So whether you're traveling, baking holiday treats, enjoying some downtime from work, or commuting as usual, settle in. It's time for the Design Build Delivers podcast top 5 of 2024.
Number 5.
Starting us off at number 5 is maximizing collaboration with US CAD and Archon's company. Streamlining design build through common data environments. In this episode that originally aired in August, we looked at how technology is revolutionizing collaboration on design build projects. US CAD's Neetha Puthran and Aaron Wagner, along with DBIA's Brian Skripak, broke down the power of common data environments, like Autodesk Construction Cloud, and overcoming communication barriers and streamlining project processes. From real-world examples of reducing RFIs to the growing influence of AI and machine learning in project management, this episode delivered practical tools and insights that really resonated with you. And while we packed a lot into the original episode, there's always just a bit more. In this bit, to celebrate this episode's number 5 status, we go back to the basics, defining common data environments and revisiting what virtual design and construction is and is not. These terms are central to understanding how technology is driving collaboration and design build. For both industry vets and rookies, it can sometimes be helpful to strip everything down and go back to square one. And this clip clears up some common misconceptions and highlights the value of trust, transparency, and accessibility in project data. Before we go any further into this discussion, I want to make sure we understand some basics because I didn't, judging by the notes you gave me on our discussion. And while I know the majority of our listeners will actually know the difference, we need to take a minute to clear things up for that one person who doesn't. We're going to be talking a lot about a common data environment, or CDE, and we have Brian, so we're also going to be talking a little about VDC. Can you all explain the difference?
CDE, or common data environment, is essentially that safe place for all of the project data. So it's kind of this place where I can reliably go in, find the information that I need, and then also contribute my information and see my impacts on the overall project. And VDC is certainly a component to that. I think VDC is more akin to like the models and constructability and just general layout and design of the project. Certainly an important aspect. It would probably live in a common data environment if we're doing it correctly.
Just for the minutia of the terminology from DBIA, and not to confuse common data environment and VDC at all, but one of the ways that we delineate things are we talk about a building information model being a deliverable. It's an entity, it's an object that either the architect, the engineer, trade contractor, whoever's authoring that information is providing this as a deliverable for the project, where VDC is the process in which those models get aggregated or federated, simulated, or analyzed in whatever means to drive value for the project. The hope would be that those individual models plus much more of the design and construction information would be hosted in a common data environment where that CDE allows for that transparency to the information, accessibility to the information, the opportunity to get those immediate updates and things that we're talking about, and kind of relying on trust as opposed to, well, I have the most current version of the model. No, Aaron does. And then Neetha says, well, I thought I had the most current version of the model. No, we all know to go to that common data environment and rely upon the information that's there. That really being the value of that additional layer of value for the whole project team and what they're delivering.
Adding to what Brian was saying, he was talking about VDC as the process to contribute to the BIM model, and then the CDE would be where it lived. Another way to sort of think about it too is, you might have an RFI or issue or punch list item or change order or something else that happens in the project. Hopefully that also happens in the common data environment, and that would maybe influence what happens in those VDC processes.
Are you interested in sustainable design and construction practices but concerned about profitability? USCAD, an Archons company, helps forward-thinking ENR top-ranked AEC firms in mitigating risk and driving profit through digitalization using Autodesk AEC technology. To learn more, contact uscad.com/DBIA for a free 30-minute consultation. That's uscad.com/DBIA.
Number 4.
Number 4 is one for the ladies. Well, non-ladies too. The fourth most downloaded episode of 2024 is our April episode, Blueprints to Inclusion, Championing Women in Design, Build, and Beyond. This conversation was so impactful, it spawned not one, not two, but 3 bonus content episodes. And this really hit home with you because it balanced challenges and opportunities for women in design build, including soft skills, mentorship, and some leadership strategies. But it also sparked questions about the future. How do we keep these conversations alive? Here's a unique clip that takes a bit of a fresh angle. Anna Pridmore shared a fantastic perspective about how giving young professionals a chance to explore different roles early on helps them find their footing in the industry and build their confidence. And then tying into that, Ladrina Dansby highlights how engaging with owners and meeting their aspirational goals can naturally foster diversity and inclusivity within design-build teams, and that helps pave the way for more collaboration, more inclusion, and a better future for the industry. What advice do you have for young women or non-binary individuals, just non-men, interested in pursuing a career in construction?
So what Barbara said about as part of her early opportunities within her organization, getting out to the field, and that was a part of the rotation, our organization does something similar. So as part of Structural Group, both for interns as well as the entry level, what we call project engineers, they go through an extensive field rotation to get that hands-on experience. And I would encourage anyone interested in this career to really take the opportunity, especially if you're still in college, to go through and do an internship and to explore jobs within the industry that may have some type of rotational program that allows you to have experience in different facets that then allows you to figure out which area you may want to differentiate. Because it's hard sometimes to know right off the bat what you may want to do. So some organizations have that type of program like ours do, where you get a chance to rotate through different divisions and gets you that broader experience. So that's another really good option to give you that insight.
In what ways do you think DBIA can better support and encourage diversity of thought in construction?
I would say continue to engage with our owners, because our owners are going to drive the diversity. Because we are a service provider, we are meeting the aspirational goals of our owners. So that in itself should add more diversity and inclusivity and hopefully get more women into the C-suite positions.
Number 3.
It's funny. Our number 3 episode was the runaway leader for most of the year. Then along came the episodes that took our numbers 1 and 2 spots. Now, if you'd have asked me about halfway through the year what our most popular episode was, it would have been this one hands down, and it is still getting plays. It's definitely a big winner. So landing at number 3 is January's Tackling State Design Build Legislation, California's PDB Bill as a Starting Point. We talked about how design build advocacy has transformed over the last 30 years, from only 3 states allowing design build for public projects to a record-breaking 78% of related bills passing in 2023. Among the standout efforts was California's SB 706, which expanded PDB authority to all agencies in the state. And while the episode covered a lot, there's still more to uncover. Bo Biller shared a behind-the-scenes look at the early days of DBIA's advocacy, highlighting how the organization built coalitions and tackled resistance to lay the groundwork for legislative success today. Adding to that, Marianne O'Brien brought the practical perspective where she got into how PDB integrates construction techniques early in the design process to improve efficiency and innovation. Like our number 4 episode, January's one also launched 3 bonus content episodes that went deeper into strategies and stories behind state-level legislative wins. If you're passionate about the future of Design Build Authority, this episode and its bonus content episodes are must-listens. Let's talk about your work with DBIA's legislative efforts. This isn't your first Design Build bill, and I will say everyone else we've spoken to just gushed about the work that you did that made it a whole lot easier to get through this process. But what we didn't touch on yet was exactly what your role was and how you came into their efforts with SB 706 specifically, and, kind of a little of your background as well.
So I've been with Design Build Institute of America, Western Pacific region, I think if I were to round up to say about 15 years. In the early days, we were just getting Design Build socialized in the legislature, overcame some major obstacles with labor and others that were not a big fan. Now, today, I would say 10, 12 years later, Design Build, not progressive design build, but Design Build is commonplace, is accepted. People may not even know what it really means, but they just think it's a common, efficient method for procurement, and everyone thinks it's a good thing. Getting to the next step of progressive design build took some time, required that we reach out to the various stakeholders that care about the issue. But I think importantly, and to the credit of the Western Pacific region in particular, is they really embraced the owner side of their membership. So when we go to meet with the legislature, the policymakers, they're generally suspicious if it's on behalf of a corporation or, in this case, say, builders and contractors. They think that perhaps we're trying to do something to gain an advantage. But to the credit of the Western Pacific region and the association, they've embraced the owner side of the membership equation, giving us credibility with those that are charged by way of election, whether it's a municipality, a city, a county, a special district, whoever that may be. Ultimately, they are elected and they have a duty to make good decisions when they spend, billions of dollars, to spend that money wisely. And when they ask for these types of tools, such as progressive and design build and other alternative methods, it helps get the job done. And I think that helped us get and secure our author, Senator Caballero, the chair of the committee which would receive this bill, to put her name on it and be the lead author of the bill, along with co-authors from both houses, both parties. That's what led us down the path of starting off on a good foot.
Now, Marianne, let me preface this with, anytime we talk about progressive design build, people pay attention. We actually have a blog post from 2016 that still comes up as one of our highest viewed posts every month. Our conference sessions, our webinars, podcasts, anything that focuses on PDB always makes a great impression, and SB 706 was about California's authority to use PDB in state and local projects. And in fact, one more connection. Our 2023 Project of the Year winner, the 1021 O Street State Office Building, was a California-based PDB project. So that kind of just begs the question, right? Why is PDB such a hot-button issue?
It boils down to a few factors: that it's perceived as an incredibly fair, innovative, efficient, and customizable process. So if we were to break that down point by point, it's fair because all of the parties in the process have a reasonable assurance of payment for the intellectual property delivered and the product delivered. It's innovative because it brings the latest techniques in construction forward into the design process, so it's factored in right from the start. All these bright minds come together. And it's efficient because those construction processes come into the design process so that what's drawn, what's agreed to initially, really don't have to be reworked later in terms of shop drawings. They can carry forward all the way through because those construction techniques are factored into what's drawn right from the start. And so to take a look at customizable, the process allows for the parties to take a detour if something comes up that's really important and go explore that as part of the process. It's not already set in stone with metrics and criteria. They can go explore that, and in the end, it allows that product to be incredibly tailored to the owner and the stakeholders that will be using that facility. So hearing all of that and knowing all of that, the board decided that it was important to listen to our members and provide the best value for them. And we could collect all these voices of why this was important and speak with the collective voice. It would resonate more. And so it was worth making the investment. So that's why we did it. That's why fundamentally, it was important and why the board decided to move forward.
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2 is our August episode, The Human Side of Progressive Design Build with Jeff Newmeyer. If there's one thing DBIA knows, it's that you cannot get enough of PDB, or Jeff for that matter. Whether you've been following Progressive Design Build since its early days, or you're just getting in on the hype, or maybe you aren't sure yet what the hype is. This episode stood out because Jeff brought something different to it, the human impact of not just PDB, but design build broadly. Instead of focusing solely on the technical aspects, Jeff shared what makes PDB thrive in dynamic, complex environments. And in this bonus clip, he gets into why its short procurement process and trust-building validation phase make it a true game changer, all with the side of Jeff's unrivaled energy and passion.
I asked you broadly then about the impact of collaborative delivery on infrastructure modernization, affordable housing demand, sustainable and climate-conscious construction, safety, durability, technology advances. So talk more about what progressive design build specifically brings to the game that can help with those and any other issues that are related.
When we talk about a lot of those concerns, I kind of briefly started to touch on this about how we're expanding what the cost of a project is and looking at full life cycle value. What progressive design build allows us now to do is have those conversations about what those long-term goals are before we actually determine what we're going to do in the capital project we're taking on at one project. It allows us to explore various iterative processes of what that is, because many times you have to do some portion of a design to see, so you might go through 3 different things to kind of say, okay, what's the most economical way to do this, given all these other factors that are out there in terms of performance. It also allows a comfortable level of, as you develop those, that you can sort out who's going to take the risk for what as you go through these things, because once people feel like risk is unfairly being put upon them, I would say in this case, let's say we're talking about energy use intensity of a building, for example. You can still perfectly model everything in a model before you ever design it or build it, or even after you've designed it, and say it's going to have this energy use intensity. Then you go and build it and you actually test it, and it could be close but not quite there, because it's not an exact science even through the design process. So it allows you as an owner to meet with your folks that are responsible for it and say, okay, here's what we're going to do is we all agree that this is what the model says, but we have to have some sort of level of quality control on this. This is going to be maybe a measurable performance of this criteria that we know we have pretty good assurance that we can get for this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece. But we agree when we put them all together, we will agree that if we do all these things that we did together, we will get this result. Versus saying, I don't care how you do it, you're responsible for it. If you don't make it happen, off with your head. Progressive allows us now to have these different conversations so that people aren't going, okay, I'll do it. Because what's going to happen now is they'll just overdo it. If you're going to hold them accountable, they overdo it, they'll be very ultra conservative. Guess what? Now the money's disappearing. Now we're getting into cost problems. That's that relationship part to it, is that you can have these discussions. Like, if you're going to hold me to that, I got to not do a 2 on this, I got to do a 10 on this and a 10 on that. And 10. So that's what progressive allows. That's why that relationship is really important to achieve these things we've been talking about. We're no longer looking at projects, as I mentioned, just on a get her done. It's get her done and operate and maintain it effectively. That's what progressive design build is really built upon, is that long-term durability for complex, technologically complex, but also just performance-based complex problems.
I'm going to use Get Her Done in the title of the episode, just so you know.
Get her done.
Number 1.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to reveal our number 1 Design Build Delivers podcast episode of 2024. This one, it didn't just edge out the competition, it crushed it. Since its release, it has skyrocketed to the top, claiming the biggest 7-day download trend since at least I started hosting in May 2023. So what made it such a hit? This episode centered on a somewhat famous city on the East Coast. You know her and you love her. And it featured 2 of the low-key funniest guys and 1 high-key goofball in the DBIA community. Proudly and aggressively taking that number 1 spot, just like a New Yorker, is our October episode, From Legislation to Landmark Projects, How the New York City Department of Design and Construction is Doing Design Build Right, where we were joined by DDC's Tom Foley and David Veroli and DBIA's Richard Thomas. New York City delivered its first design build project, the Queensboro Hall Garage and Community Center, in just 22 months, earning it a slate of accolades that includes DBIA's 2024 Inspired Owner Award, as well as a National Award of Excellence and a National Award of Merit for federal, state, county, and municipal facilities. The episode also gets into how New York City's design build successes are setting a precedent for other states and local governments. For this clip, we're going to let David Veroli take the spotlight. Don't worry, Tom, who is our incoming national board chair, gets plenty of airtime elsewhere in the episode and in next month's episode, as a matter of fact. Here, David shares the behind-the-scenes story of New York City's design build legislation and how it transformed the way the city delivers projects. So how have design build contracts been adapted to address these unusual challenges, and were there any unexpected legal hurdles?
New York is, I think, the definition of urban. Again, where DBIA was so resourceful for us, at least in terms of the starting point. And I heard this loud and clear when Tom and I think, attended our first DBIA national conference, which I believe was in 2018, where the contract is not a design contract that is then smashed with a construction contract. That real design build done right is that you're going to create a contract that is going to deal with both the design and the construction. If you're going to take your old forms and just put it together and call it design build, well, you could call it design build, but it's not design build done right. That was the beginning of us saying, okay, well, we need to understand what that means in terms of our ability to draft a contract. We did a lot of background work before we ever went out with our first procurement. And the big thing we did was this listening tour. We went out to all of the different associations, including DBIA, but we spoke with ACEC, AIA, here in New York, the New York Building Congress, the General Contractors Association. And we heard what they had to say about our contract. A lot of it was not good. We have a very stringent contract. But hearing what design build is and design build done right, we understood that we had to be more of a partner. We had to look at risk in a different way. We couldn't just take all the risk and dump it on the design build winner or team. Hearing all of the feedback as to what a good design build contract was, we sat down internally, and I work with an amazing group of lawyers here. And as well as we wanted to understand, and really we did a lot of research, and we working with people like Richard and others from DBIA, we got copies of other contracts in design build. But we also realized we needed some additional help. And so we did our own little procurement. We met with 5 absolutely amazing law firms who work in this space and are really big on drafting contracts and in the design build space as well. And we were very lucky. We picked an amazing firm, the Oric Law Firm. We worked with a partner by the name of Young Lee and Matthew Nuringer. And together with their team, they helped draft for us a design build agreement that we think addresses a lot of the issues that were in our standard low bid contract, as well as really looked at risk from the perspective of, okay, what is the risk the city of New York can take on? And then what is the risk that the design builder can take on? And as Tom mentioned earlier, we completely changed our approach to disputes. We know design build doesn't eliminate 100% all disputes or claims, and it doesn't eliminate 100% all change orders, but it is a dramatic breakaway from the low bid world of claims, and change orders. And I only share this because some of the other public owners in New York City have approached me and have said, hey, we were doing a procurement and so-and-so firm said, can you guys please use the DDC contract? That made me very proud, made me proud of the agency and also proud of our working relationship with org. We wanted to be the owner of choice. And to be the owner of choice, we knew we were going to have to change our policies, our procedures, and our contract documents.
And that's it. That's a wrap. The top 5 Design Build Delivers podcast episodes of 2024. We couldn't have done any of this without you, our amazing listeners. It's your downloads, your feedback, and your shares that have made this year a record breaker for the podcast and a true reflection of the passion that exists in the design build community. Can't wait to see what floats your boat, tickles your fancy, gets your heart racing, or whatever cheesy idiom you like in 2025. Speaking of 2025, in January, we will talk to DBIA ED CEO Lisa Washington and our new National Board Chair, Tom Foley. Yes, he is officially a recurring character now. Podcast stardom, conference stardom, seems to suit him. They're going to share what's next for DBIA and Design Build in the coming year. We've also got exciting episodes featuring FMI's new market data, inspiring stories from award-winning projects, and so much more in the works. Whether you're tuning in from your commute, your home, your holiday travels, or that hopefully not ill-fated resolution to get to know those Peloton instructors a little better, we can't wait to bring you along for the ride. But before we sign off, a huge thank you to our sponsor, USCAD, for supporting Design Build Delivers this year. Learn more at uscad.com/DBIA. And of course, none of this would be possible without Fred Yee and Danielle Hall, who make sure every episode runs smoothly and we bring you the best guests in the AEC industry. A heartfelt thanks to all of those best guests for sharing their expertise, and to you, our listeners, for making this podcast a success. I am Erin Looney, wishing you a joyful and restful holiday season. Here's to a fantastic 2025. See you next year on the Design Build Delivers podcast.